Welcome to another video. In Buddhism, the question of how we eat is treated as something surprisingly important, not just a biological necessity, but a genuine part of practice. Eating with moderation and the right approach, guided by the Buddha's teaching, becomes one of the real keys to living a life that is both healthy and meaningful. Today I want to share a story the Buddha told about eating, and then walk through the specific guidance he gave that we can still apply today. During the time the Buddha was staying in Savatthi, the capital of the kingdom of Kosala, the king of that land often came to hear him teach. This king, King Pasenadi, had a real passion for food, and he tended to eat as much as he pleased, whenever he pleased. One day, after an especially heavy, filling meal, King Pasenadi came to pay his respects to the Buddha and sat down beside him, still full from what he had just eaten. The Buddha then spoke a verse to him, one that essentially said, "When a person is always mindful of how much they eat, staying within reasonable limits, their sensations become lighter, they age more slowly, and their life becomes longer." Recognizing that this teaching was valuable, and knowing full well his own weakness for food, King Pasenadi immediately turned to a young attendant standing behind him named Sudassana. He told him to memorize that verse completely, and every single time a meal was served, he was to recite it aloud so the king could hear it. In exchange, the king promised to pay him 100 gold coins every single day. Sudassana agreed, memorized the verse, and recited it faithfully before every meal from then on. Because of this simple, repeated reminder, King Pasenadi gradually began eating with far more restraint. After some time had passed, the king noticed his own body had become noticeably healthier and lighter, and he happily declared that the Buddha had truly shown him great kindness, benefiting him not only in this present life, but in the lives to come as well. What this story shows us is something worth sitting with for a moment. The feasts of ancient kings, no matter how extravagant, were never automatically good for their health. This is exactly why so many rulers throughout history lived surprisingly short lives, despite having access to the very best food available. And today, the situation has only intensified. Diseases connected to overeating and excessive indulgence are more widespread than ever before. The habit of eating too much, and eating things that are far too calorie-dense, leads directly to obesity, high cholesterol, hardened arteries, diabetes, and gout, all of which reduce quality of life, accelerate aging, and shorten our lifespan considerably. What's especially striking about this story is how little actually changed the king's behavior. It wasn't a new diet plan, a strict set of rules, or some dramatic lifestyle overhaul. It was simply a short verse, repeated out loud before every single meal, gently reminding him of something he already knew deep down, but kept forgetting in the moment of indulgence. There's something worth noticing in that alone. Sometimes the thing that actually changes a habit isn't more willpower. It's a small, consistent reminder placed exactly at the moment temptation is strongest. Before we get into the specific practical guidance, it's worth understanding the deeper attitude the Buddha encouraged us to bring to every single meal: gratitude. The Buddha once taught the monks that the rice in front of them had been produced through real human hardship, an enormous amount of effort and labor. To put it plainly, every single grain of rice in that bowl corresponds to a drop of sweat from the person who grew it. As we saw in the story above, the Buddha taught that we should always keep the body and mind calm and clear, and to do that, we have to learn to see everything accurately, through wisdom, and accept it all with an open heart. So, what should we actually see when food is placed in front of us? First, we should recognize the labor of everyone who grew that food, prepared it, and brought it to us, along with the effort of whoever cooked the meal we are about to eat. A meal also shouldn't be approached with excessive perfectionism. Suppose today's meal doesn't have many delicious dishes or is missing certain nutrients, We shouldn't treat that as some enormous problem and become irritated about it. What wasn't available today can simply be made up for tomorrow. The moment we adopt an attitude of irritation, the meal loses its joyful atmosphere, and that joyful atmosphere is actually the single most important part of any meal. Some people, when they look at the bowl of rice in front of them, feel genuine gratitude simply for having the health to receive that natural source of energy. Others look at that same bowl and think of people who won't get a meal at all that day, which brings its own kind of contentment with their current circumstances, along with thoughts about what they might be able to do to help someone less fortunate than themselves. When we stop eating purely out of habit and instead sit down to a meal with a calm body and mind, we can genuinely awaken a sense of gratitude within ourselves. Now, let's move into the specific things to pay attention to during meals for good health, practical enough to fit modern life, while still supporting progress in practice. Here are 7 things worth practicing as support along this path. Number 1. Maintain mindfulness while eating. You should eat in a calm, settled state of mind, in an environment that is comfortable and quiet. It helps to take a few minutes to rest before eating so your mind can settle. Don't eat in a rush. If we eat hurriedly, or while feeling stressed and irritated, the food won't be digested properly, and this creates all kinds of consequences for the body. When the mind is agitated, the entire body becomes disordered along with it. When a person is angry, the stomach actually tightens, hardens, and reddens, losing its natural flexibility and its normal digestive motion. Because of this, eating while angry means the food doesn't get digested properly and instead becomes excess matter that rots inside the body, producing acids and toxins that are harmful to our health. Number 2. Chew your food thoroughly. Most of us eat in a hurry, rushing through meals so we can get to the next task. This is genuinely harmful to the body. For starchy foods like rice, bread, or noodles, digestion actually begins right there in the mouth. Saliva is released and mixes with the food, partially breaking it down before it even reaches the stomach. If we don't chew thoroughly and swallow too quickly, food arrives in the stomach still undigested, which places extra strain on the stomach's own digestive process. The act of eating itself is actually a deeply ethical act toward yourself. Eating too fast without chewing properly tends to create illness and real suffering for your own body, while eating too slowly simply wastes time unnecessarily. Gulping food down hastily is the manner of an undisciplined, unrefined person, not the manner of someone with genuine discipline and self-cultivation. Eating in a careless, undignified way tends to invite the ridicule and quiet disrespect of the people around you. Number 3. Avoid overeating. As the Buddha taught, we eat simply to have enough strength and health to continue our practice, not to eat purely for pleasure or indulgence. Overeating out of greed only harms the body. More food does not mean more benefit. When we eat far more than we need, we force the entire digestive system to work well beyond its capacity, and this prevents digestion from ever being fully completed. When food is only partially digested, it turns into rotting, toxic matter inside the body. Overeating is a genuinely harmful habit that needs to be corrected, and it's worth teaching children this lesson early as well, so they grow up with a healthier relationship with food. Number 4. Don't be overly picky about food. The Buddha taught quite specifically on this point. Constantly picking through your food looking for the tastiest bites means your mind is still chasing pleasure, and a mind still chasing pleasure is a mind still caught in craving. A mind caught in craving is a mind still entangled in unwholesome states, and a mind entangled in unwholesome states is a mind still experiencing suffering. A mind still experiencing suffering has not yet found liberation, and a mind that hasn't found liberation is still bound by attachment. We eat with the purpose of moving toward liberation, so we eat to live rather than living to eat. Whatever food happens to be available is what we eat, rather than seeking out this dish or that dish purely because it tastes better. For a practitioner, food is really just medicine for the hunger of this physical body, meant only to sustain the practice itself, not to decorate the body or chase pleasant flavors and exquisite delicacies. Number 5. Sit in a proper posture while eating. When eating, sit with your back straight so that energy can flow freely along the spine without placing pressure on the digestive organs. Ideally, sit cross-legged in a stable, grounded position. Eating while standing should be avoided entirely, as this kind of careless posture takes away from the dignity and discipline expected of someone practicing sincerely. Number 6. Avoid snacking between meals. It takes roughly 4 hours for food to be fully digested and to clear the stomach, allowing the digestive fluids to regroup and prepare for the next meal. If we eat multiple times throughout the day without that gap, these digestive fluids never get the chance to concentrate sufficiently, and they won't have enough strength to fully digest whatever comes next. Food that isn't fully digested eventually turns into substances that are harmful to the body. Because of this, we should only eat when we are genuinely hungry, and ideally no more than 4 times a day. Number 7. Rest after eating. After a meal, avoid heavy physical activity or intense mental effort. Right after eating, the digestive organs need the body's full energy concentrated on digestion. If we exert ourselves physically or mentally right after a meal, energy and blood get diverted elsewhere in the body, which interferes with proper digestion. The best practice after a meal is a slow, gentle walking meditation, moving quietly while keeping the mind calm and settled. Beyond these 7 points on general eating habits, the Buddha also gave the monks very specific guidelines to follow at meal times, and even though they were written for monastics, the spirit behind them is genuinely useful for anyone. He taught that food should never be chewed loudly or gulped down with audible sound or slurped in a way that makes noise. A monk eating gently and unhurriedly simply wouldn't produce those sounds in the first place. Only someone eating carelessly and hastily ends up eating that way. He also taught against eating in a way that is loud or hurried more broadly, since gentle, unhurried eating naturally avoids that kind of noise. He taught against licking food left on bowls, plates, or utensils, since that kind of behavior looks almost childish, something even ordinary people outside religious life wouldn't consider appropriate. He taught the importance of washing your hands thoroughly before eating with them, since eating with dirty hands invites illness and unnecessary suffering. And even something as small as rinsing out your bowl after a meal, he taught that this rinse water and any leftover scraps should never simply be discarded carelessly onto the ground, but properly disposed of in an appropriate place, out of basic respect for cleanliness and for the environment shared with others. To bring this all together for life today, in order to prevent illness and support a longer life, we genuinely need to eat in a way that makes sense. There's an old saying, illness enters through the mouth, and misfortune also often begins there. The healthy eating principles the Buddha taught, even though they were given more than 2,600 years ago, remain a remarkably sound and basic standard for bringing health and longevity to people living even in this modern, highly developed age. So, if this video gave you something useful today, please check out the full Buddhism in English channel for more videos to help you find peace and wisdom through ancient teachings. And don't forget to subscribe. Thanks so much for watching.